How to Become an Alpha Male, Chapter 1. The Truth About Women's Love of Sex. It may surprise you. Women are too complicated. Women are too needy when it comes to relationships. I just don't understand women. You hear that crap all the time, and honestly, it's a cop-out. Other men say that because it's easier to throw up their hands and just relate to women as black boxes that can't be understood than to try and wrap their minds around understanding women. Here's what you need to understand about women, and it's good news. They are very sexual creatures on a fundamental biological level. In fact, they probably enjoy sex even more than we do. Ever notice how women moan during sex much more than men do? Chapter 1, Section 2. What all women live in fear of, and the trick to soothing this anxiety so they'll do whatever you ask. Unfortunately, society conditions women to believe, in the logical portion of their minds, not the emotional portion, mind you, that it's, quote, wrong to enjoy sex. Because women tend to be social creatures, more so than men for reasons of evolutionary psychology, labels such as slut or whore have a strong negative effect on them. None of these penalties apply to men who have lots of sex. Thus, the supreme tragedy of the misogynistic system set up by religion and society to repress women's sexuality is that men everywhere have more of a challenge in getting sex than they would if they were living back in pre-civilization times, when women were wild and uninhibited. So your job as a man in modern society is to get around a woman's societal conditioning and draw out the natural woman within her. Sound hard? Believe me, it's not. In a way, women are like padlocks. They seem impossible if you're using the wrong keys, but once you find the right key, they open easily. And yes, you can do this. I'm going to show you how. To draw out the natural woman that lies deep inside every chick, you must always bear in mind that on a subconscious level, women love sex and they want it just as much as, and maybe more than, we do. And as if the societal conditioning that women are subjected to isn't bad enough, a much more powerful force lies within them, their biology. A perfectly natural consequence that can result from having sex is having babies, and every woman knows it. And she knows that if she gets pregnant when she isn't supposed to be pregnant, people will talk. Therein lies another supreme tragedy of women. Despite loving sex, they can't be free with their sexuality without biological consequences of getting pregnant, and without, as I mentioned earlier, being labeled a slut. So while you, as a sexual man, move your encounters with women towards sex, you need to prevent her at the same time from feeling like a slut. By the way, it's to your own advantage to be discreet with women. The last thing you should ever do is be like the approval-seeking beta males who brag to their buddies about the women they've bedded. You don't need the approval of your buddies, so skip the locker room talk. Real men don't need to do that. Ever talked with guys who tell you, "Man, we men will never understand women"? Well, women really aren't as mysterious or hard to understand as guys think. Nor are they as different from us as some of us might think. Since we know that women want sex, it's okay for you to have sex as your agenda when you interact with them. In fact, it's actually a good idea. What you should avoid doing at all costs, however, is verbalizing your intentions. You do not want to say anything about sex or your intent to have it to the woman. Whenever you reveal your sexual intentions to a woman by saying something about it, you engage the logical portion of her mind, which causes her societal conditioning to kick in. Uh-oh, she thinks. This guy is tacky, gross, and creepy, and I could end up being a slut here. So avoid being explicit about sex, and keep in the back of your mind how much women love sex, and work on projecting sexuality without saying anything about it at all. Use your body language, not your mouth. Chapter 1, Section 3. What Women Like. Don't listen to what women say when they talk about the kind of men they like. Instead, watch their behavior and look at the kinds of men they actually go for. If a woman were honest, she would say that the type of man she likes is a sexual man who will create an opportunity for sex and will persist past my barriers. She doesn't dare say this, however, because, as I said, she's terrified of some calling her a slut. Now, to answer the question you're probably thinking, women like relationships, but that's not something they need a man for. After all, women have very close relationships with their female friends. I can't repeat it enough. Women want a man who provides them with good sex. And here's another biological bummer. Women usually assume the passive role when it comes to sex. So that means that you, the man, need to take responsibility for the sex by pushing the encounter steadily toward the lay. Don't make her take the lead. I mean, think about it. She lives in fear of the slut label and you're expecting her to initiate sex? It's no wonder so many guys have trouble getting laid. That's way too much to expect. A woman simply is not going to go out on a limb that much. For you to get laid, you're going to have to create a situation where the woman feels like she can have sex with you without consequences for her. For example, about a month before I started writing this book, and at this point several years ago, I picked up a woman at happy hour. We talked for a couple hours about the topics I'll reveal later, which make women super chatty. She and I hit it off well, and then, 2 hours into our conversation, she tells me that she has a boyfriend. At this point, there were a number of ways I could have reacted. Most guys would have done one of the following two things. A, gotten upset and left, feeling bitter about how the woman had led me on. B, tried to talk themselves up and convince the girl to dump that other guy for them. Most guys would have opted for either A or B. Believe me, I used to do that too. Instead, I've learned that the best thing to do is what I call option C. React nonchalantly, maintaining my alpha male composure and demonstrating that what she said didn't faze me. Good, I said playfully. He'll keep you occupied when you're away from me. She laughed, which meant it was fully on between her and me that night. I don't normally go for chicks with boyfriends, but she'd been flirting hard with some guy in a bar for 2 hours, namely me. So, how good could that relationship be? And by the way, if a woman ever comes on to you who's in a relationship, mark my words. If she doesn't have sex with you, then she'll find some other guy to hook up with and satisfy her carnal desires. Her current boyfriend is unsatisfying to her, or else she wouldn't be flirting with other guys. As the evening went on, we had the perfect excuse for her to swing by my place. She was a big aficionado of the British royal family, and I told her about my collection of gossip magazines from the time I vacationed in England. Come check them out, I said. Once we go to my apartment, of course, It was just a matter of me maintaining control of the interaction and allowing her to slowly heat up sexually. I reveal how to do this in a later section of this guide. Around 2 a.m., she decided to leave my place, not wanting to spend the night. All she'd wanted from me was sex, with no strings attached. She knew that no one would ever find out about what she and I did. In other words, sex with no consequences. That's what women crave. You've probably heard about women on vacation looking for out-of-town flings. Ever wonder why they do that? It's because there's no accountability for them. They're not going to get called a slut by anybody from back home. Sex happens spontaneously because the conditions are right. A woman thousands of miles from home can fulfill her carnal desires, and no one from her hometown need ever know. Chapter 1, Section 4. Don't explicitly talk about what you're going to do. There's a certain mating ritual that humans do. It's like a dance, which lasts for a number of hours. The mating ritual must follow the proper steps in order for the sex to take place. We guys have an unfortunate tendency of wanting to always clear the air and find out from the woman straight up what's going on, where everything stands between the two of you, and how she feels about having sex. This is all a huge mistake. Never verbalize anything about where you are in the mating ritual with a woman. Don't tell her explicitly what your intentions are. That's a logical male thing to do. Logical things kill emotions. And emotions are crucial for a woman to have in order to be sexually receptive to you. By not talking about your intentions concerning sex, you'll make it seem like the two of you had sex spontaneously. You'll keep the emotional part of her engaged, while the logical portion of her mind stays disengaged. And that's good. It's the logical part of her mind that says no. If you come across to her as a real gentleman with whom she really hit it off, then she'll rationalize in her mind that even though she doesn't normally have sex on a first date, you were the exception. Just remember, a good time for a woman consists of good sex with a man, and she wants you to be that man.